Earth was silent for so long that most of the galaxy believed it had simply vanished. No signals, no ships, no warnings. A blue world tucked behind a wall of static, sealed away for reasons no one could explain. But the truth, the real truth, was something no empire dared to imagine. Humanity had not disappeared. Humanity had been preparing. For millennia. Travelers who charted the edges of known space would speak of a strange sector and empty region with no star maps, no trade routes, no records. Some said their scanners went blind when they approached it, as if space itself refused to be seen. Others reported hearing faint echoes through the void, like old voices calling from behind a locked door. But they always turned back. Everyone did. Because no one wanted to disturb whatever was hiding in the dark. What they didn't know was that Earth was very much alive beneath the silence. Its cities had grown taller, its oceans had grown brighter, and its people had grown wiser. They remembered the day the galaxy abandoned them, leaving them to face their collapse alone. They remembered the broken alliances, the blocked stargates, the sudden isolation. They remembered the fear. And they remembered the promise they would never be caught unprepared again. Far beneath the crust, in places where sunlight hadn't touched for thousands of years, humanity kept a secret. A timeless secret they never shared with anyone beyond their world. Even those born on Earth didn't know the full truth. They only sensed it in the way their leaders spoke softly when certain topics arose, or how old maps displayed blank spaces that no one dared to question. It was a secret that wasn't written, wasn't recorded, wasn't spoken aloud. It was simply passed from one generation of guardians to the next. Now, with the galaxy buzzing with rumors of Earth's return, a quiet unease spreads through distant systems. Fleets that once ruled the stars hesitate. Traders whisper that if Earth truly reappears after millennia, they will come back changed, stronger, sharper, united in ways the galaxy has never seen. Because no species survives isolation that long without building something powerful in the background. On Earth, the first tremors begin the moment the barrier flickers. People lift their eyes to the sky, sensing something stirring after ages of secrecy. In the great underground halls, alarms that haven't sounded in thousands of years begin to wake. Silent lights pulse back to life. The guardians gather, standing before a sealed chamber older than any living memory. They know this moment would come. They knew the quiet would not last forever. But the question is not whether Earth is ready. The real question, the one no outsider has ever asked, is what humanity has been protecting all this time. What stayed locked away behind layers of stone, tech, and tradition. What could shape the fate of the galaxy the moment it is revealed? And as the ancient door begins to shift for the first time since history forgot its purpose, one thing becomes clear: the secret was never meant to stay hidden forever. It just needed the right moment to be unleashed. The old chamber shuddered as dust drifted from the ceiling like slow, falling snow. For a moment no one moved. The guardians stood in a half-circle around the sealed door, unsure whether to breathe or hold their breath. Generations had lived and died waiting for this exact moment, but none of them expected it to feel so heavy, as if the entire weight of Earth's forgotten past was pressing against the air. The door didn't open all the way. It shifted enough to release a thin beam of pale light from the darkness beyond, a light that didn't flicker like any normal lamp. It felt older, steadier, almost alive. The guardians exchanged looks, each silently wondering the same thing. Was the secret inside still active after all these millennia? No one dared to step closer yet. The room seemed to be listening. Above them, the world continued on the edge of something no one could name. As news spread across Earth that the barrier around the planet was weakening, people felt a pull-in instinct buried deep in their bones. They sensed movement in the sky, shifts in patterns they had grown used to. The isolation that once protected them could no longer keep the galaxy out. And many feared it could no longer keep their ancient secret contained either. But to understand why Earth hid itself, why humanity became a quiet shadow to the stars, the story reached far back, long before the silence, long before the collapse, long before the alliances crumbled. There was a time when Earth was loud in the galaxy. Humans traveled freely, traded openly, stood alongside species far older and stronger than themselves. They brought new ideas, explored forgotten systems, and built bonds that seemed unbreakable. The galaxy had been vast and full of uncertainty, but humanity faced it with stubborn hope. Their ships crossed distances others avoided, their scientists solved problems others ignored, and their leaders worked to bridge conflicts no one else wanted to deal with. But the deeper humanity pushed into the unknown, the more they discovered. And one discovery changed everything. It started with a signal, a pulse that didn't belong to any known civilization, echoing from a silent region of space. Teams went to investigate, eager to claim a breakthrough. What they found, instead, was the beginning of a secret so dangerous that even speaking about it became forbidden. The details were never written down. Those who knew only shared fragments enough to warn, never enough to explain. Some whispered that Earth discovered something buried in the core of another world. Others believed humanity encountered an ancient construct older than every empire combined. A few said the signal came from something that wasn't a machine or a creature, but something in between, something timeless. Whatever it was, humanity brought knowledge of it back to Earth, and the galaxy reacted with fear. One by one, borders tightened. Former allies blocked communications. Trade ceased. Stargates leading to Earth's region shut down without warning. Leaders from distant worlds claimed it was only temporary, a simple precaution, but behind their words was a quiet dread. They didn't want the secret spreading. They didn't want anyone to know what humanity had touched. So Earth was isolated. Not by choice, but by force. At first, humanity tried to reason with the others, tried to prove they were not a threat. But every message went unanswered. Every attempt to reach out ended in silence. In time, the people of Earth realized the truth: the galaxy wasn't protecting itself from them. It was protecting itself from the secret Earth now carried. Refusing to be victims of fear, humanity turned inward. They strengthened their world. They built systems, technologies, and knowledge far beyond what they once had. They hid their discoveries deep underground in chambers like the one now awakening. They allowed the galaxy to forget them while they prepared for a future no one could predict. Now that future was here. In the underground chamber, one of the Guardians finally stepped toward the partially open door. The air changed as they approached, almost humming. With a slow push, they widened the gap, just enough to reveal more of the light inside. It cast soft reflections across the chamber's stone walls, catching in the eyes of those watching. Inside the room was something that didn't match any era, any technology, any style known to Earth or the galaxy. It was suspended above the ground, smooth and quiet, as if waiting for someone to speak the first word. A low vibration pulsed from it, steady and calm. One Guardian whispered that it was reacting to the broken barrier outside, that the moment Earth reconnected to the galaxy, the secret sensed it. But none of them knew what would happen next. They only knew the chamber wasn't waking up by accident. Something out there, somewhere in the stars, had triggered it. And as the humming grew stronger, a soft echo rippled through the walls, like a distant voice finally reaching home after thousands of years. Earth's silence had ended. But the secret behind that silence was just beginning to stir. The humming grew steadier, reaching a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. The Guardians stood frozen, each of them trying to make sense of the sound. It wasn't loud, yet it filled the entire chamber, vibrating through the stone floor and settling into their bones. One of them took a slow breath, as if worried even that might disturb whatever was waking inside the room. Another stepped back, gripping the railing behind them. The light from the suspended object pulsed softly, like it was studying the people watching it. Outside the underground halls, the world was shifting in ways no one had expected. The weakening barrier around Earth had already been noticed by distant sensors across the galaxy. Old networks that once carried warnings and messages now buzzed with urgent chatter. Systems that had ignored Earth for generations suddenly put it at the top of their lists. Some wanted answers. Some wanted to stay away. But many feared what it meant if the planet they tried so hard to isolate was finally stepping back into the open. For humans living on the surface, life felt both normal and strange. Families sat around their tables trying to explain the flashing lights appearing in the sky. Workers gathered around screens, whispering about rumors of incoming ships. People who never paid much attention to space now watched the horizon with a quiet sense of dread. They knew something old was returning, something tied to their distant past, but they didn't know if it meant hope or danger. Governments across Earth scrambled to understand what was happening. Leaders met behind closed doors, discussing the fractured star maps that now showed signals approaching from beyond the barrier. Some argued that Earth should reveal the truth of the ancient secret. Others insisted it must stay buried. A few suggested reaching out to the galaxy first, but no one could agree on what tone to use, friendly, cautious, or defensive. And then there were those who believed this moment wasn't just about Earth. They argued that the galaxy didn't isolate humanity out of fear alone. They believed something else was involved, something that wanted the secret hidden even more than the other species did. Those voices were small, but their warnings echoed louder as the signs grew stronger. Down in the chamber, the Guardians finally moved as the object shifted. It didn't rise or fall. It simply turned, slowly rotating so its smooth surface faced them directly. Goosebumps rippled across the arms of the closest Guardian. None of them had ever seen the object do anything. Their ancestors had passed down stories of how it arrived, but those stories were incomplete, always ending before the truth was told. One Guardian stepped forward, whispering that the object might be responding to signals from beyond the barrier. Maybe it recognized something out there? Maybe something was calling it. Another suggested that it could be preparing to communicate, though no one understood how. Its energy signature didn't match any known format. It wasn't a weapon, but it wasn't harmless either. It was something in between, something humanity once studied, feared, and protected. Far above, in orbit around Earth, older satellites flickered to life. Machines thought long dead rebooted with new instructions. Their long-range sensors aligned themselves toward points of light now approaching from distant systems. On one screen, a small cluster of unknown vessels appeared. They held formation, silent yet deliberate, like scouts sent ahead of something larger. The readings didn't match any familiar species, not even those who once abandoned Earth. That alone made the situation more unsettling. Meanwhile, rumors spread among ordinary people. Some believed Earth's isolation had been a blessing, protecting them from wars the galaxy never mentioned. Others thought the secret underground chambers held answers that could reshape humanity's future. Groups formed across different regions, some demanding the truth, others urging patience. A quiet divide began to grow, not violent but tense, as fear and curiosity tangled themselves into every conversation. The Guardians felt that tension too. As the object continued its silent rotation, a distant signal reached the chamber. It was faint at first, a repeating pattern like a quiet knock on a locked door. It didn't sound like a threat. But it didn't sound friendly either. It sounded familiar. Too familiar. One Guardian reached toward a nearby console, activating a system untouched for countless years. Old displays lit up with symbols from another era. The signal repeated, clearer this time, and the room filled with a soft, rhythmic pattern. No one recognized the meaning, but they all sensed the urgency. Outside, Earth's skies flickered again. The approaching vessels slowed as if waiting for a response. The barrier that once protected the planet shimmered, thin and trembling, unable to hold much longer. The object inside the ancient chamber pulsed brighter. Something out there wanted contact. And something on Earth was finally waking up to answer. The hum inside the chamber had grown louder now, resonating through every stone, every hallway, every corridor that had been carved and sealed for generations. The Guardians felt it in their bones, in their chests, in the very rhythm of their hearts. The suspended object no longer just pulsed, it throbbed, casting shadows that danced across the walls like living shapes. Every flicker of light seemed to reveal something hidden, patterns that shifted too quickly to follow, symbols that whispered of things long forgotten. No one dared speak. The air was too thick with anticipation, too heavy with the sense that history itself was breathing down their necks. Outside, Earth's sky was changing. Faint streaks of light appeared beyond the clouds, moving deliberately, almost cautiously. as if the universe itself hesitated to confront the planet that had been hidden for millennia. Distant ships, previously thought abandoned or lost to time, now reactivated, drifting slowly, scanning, observing. Humanity had long expected curiosity, perhaps even fear, from the galaxy, but the patience, the calculated distance of these vessels, sent a chill through those who watched from the surface. The galaxy wasn't just observing Earth, it was testing it. In the cities, people began to notice subtle changes. Communications flickered with strange signals. Screens across networks displayed flashes that weren't programmed, repeating patterns that no one could decipher. Ordinary citizens reported hearing low-frequency vibrations in the air, like the world itself was humming a song of warning, fear mixed with awe, excitement mixed with dread. And everywhere the question pulsed through every mind: what had humanity been hiding all this time? Back in the chamber, one guardian finally broke the silence, voice trembling. "It's responding," they whispered. Their hand hovered over the console, hesitant, as if moving too quickly could destroy centuries of preparation. Another guardian stepped closer, eyes fixed on the object. "No," they said firmly, "it's waiting. It's waiting for something, someone." The others glanced at each other, uncertainty reflected in every pair of eyes. No one could say who or what the object awaited. All they knew was that the rhythm had changed again, faster now, sharper, like a countdown. A sudden tremor rattled the chamber, making dust fall from the ceiling. The hum escalated, growing into a low, almost deafening vibration. The guardians struggled to stay balanced as the walls themselves seemed to pulse. One of the younger guardians looked at the object with wide eyes. "It's alive," they breathed. I think it's alive," others didn't argue. No one could. Whatever this was, it had waded through centuries of silence, through isolation, through the galaxy's indifference, and now it was awake. Above the planet, the distant ships shifted formation. Their movements were deliberate, almost predatory. On the bridge of one of these vessels, sensors picked up the energy signature emanating from Earth's core. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever recorded. Other vessels hesitated, scanning, analyzing, communicating through signals too rapid or complex for human devices to decipher. The sense of an impending confrontation was unmistakable. Whatever was coming, whatever had been lying dormant for thousands of years, it had drawn the attention of those who once ignored Earth, or perhaps those who feared it most. Back on the surface, humans felt the world tremble subtly underfoot. Air traffic halted as pilots reported strange disruptions. Military communications lit up with activity, though no command had been given. People instinctively moved toward shelters, underground networks, and historical observation points, following instincts passed down from ancestors who had survived isolation. Something in the sky, something beneath the crust, had signaled the awakening of a force they didn't yet understand. In the chamber, the object rotated faster now. It projected a soft glow that formed shapes in the air patterns that no one could name but that seemed almost familiar, like fragments of memory. The Guardians instinctively knew these shapes were a language, one of action rather than words, a code from a time before isolation, a message meant to awaken something long forgotten. One Guardian reached out, fingers trembling as they neared the light. The chamber reacted immediately, the thrum intensified, vibrating through metal, stone, and flesh alike. The signal from beyond the barrier strengthened. The approaching vessels shifted again, accelerating slightly, as if they had been waiting for a cue. Across Earth, energy readings spiked. Electronics, natural phenomena, even animals reacted as though sensing the pulse of something ancient and immense. The planet itself seemed alive, poised on the edge of a revelation that could shake the galaxy. And then, a sudden surge, an intense wave of light and energy from the object that made the Guardians stagger. The symbols in the air sharpened, almost screaming in clarity. Something was emerging, something that had been sealed away for millennia, something the galaxy thought would never return. The distant ships halted abruptly in space, sensors recording data too fast for any crew to process. All around the planet, signals, patterns, and vibrations converged, building a tension so sharp it could be felt in the air. For the first time in thousands of years, humanity was no longer hidden. Every decision, every preparation, every secret chamber, every buried technology had led to this moment. And yet, no one knew what would happen when the last barrier broke. When the object fully awakened, when the galaxy finally recognized that Earth had been ready all along. The pulse reached a crescendo, the light blinding, the vibration almost unbearable. Guardians held on, bracing themselves. People above ground and ships in orbit all sensed the same truth. Something unstoppable was stirring. Something that would not wait. Something that would demand the galaxy's attention. And in that instant, Earth itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first move in a confrontation the universe had never anticipated. The countdown had begun, but the outcome was still unknown. The pulse of energy from the chamber didn't fade. Instead, it shifted, becoming sharper, more insistent, as if the object had sensed more than just the awakening of the Guardians. The light projected into the air, forming patterns that stretched beyond comprehension, symbols that danced faster than the human eye could follow. The Guardians realized, almost simultaneously, that the signal wasn't just responding to Earth's barrier, it was communicating. And whatever it was saying, it wasn't meant for them alone. Above the planet, the fleet of distant ships reacted to the change. Their sensors, previously passive, now flared with alerts. The alien vessels moved faster, but they didn't attack, they circled, maintaining distance as if wary of the energy surging from Earth. For centuries, these ships had believed humanity isolated and powerless. Now they sensed something entirely different, something formidable, something their galaxy had never seen before. And then came the first real shock. The energy pulse from the chamber wasn't confined to Earth. It leapt outward, touching satellites, relays, and even long-abandoned monitoring posts in nearby systems. Data streams long thought dead began to flicker and hum. Coordinates, measurements, even old star maps were recalibrating themselves in real time. Humanity realized that the object wasn't just awakening, it was reactivating systems that had been dormant for millennia. Entire networks of forgotten technology hummed back to life, their purpose unclear but undeniably powerful. The Guardians looked at one another, fear mixing with awe. One of them spoke quietly, almost a whisper. "It's connecting everything." Others nodded, understanding immediately. This wasn't just about Earth. Whatever secret had been hidden beneath the surface was not contained to a single chamber. It had a reach far beyond the planet and far beyond the galaxy's understanding. On the surface, ordinary humans began to notice changes in their environment. Communication networks flashed with strange codes, electricity fluctuated in unusual patterns, and animals reacted nervously to signals no one could see. In the sky, auroras sparked in strange colors, forming shapes and patterns that mirrored the symbols in the underground chamber. The planet itself seemed to be communicating, as if it had become a living node in a network no one had fully comprehended until now. Then came the real twist. Sensors on one of Earth's satellites detected something approaching, something massive, moving faster than any known craft in the galaxy. But it wasn't part of the original fleet observing the planet. It didn't follow the same trajectory. It didn't behave like a ship at all. The readings were impossible. Energy readings spiked beyond anything recorded before, and every instrument on Earth and in orbit struggled to contain the data. For the first time, humanity faced an unknown approaching force, one that could potentially match the power they had been hiding for millennia. Inside the chamber, the object pulsed violently. Its light fractured into smaller projections that extended along the walls, forming corridors of glowing energy. Symbols moved in every direction, converging and diverging in ways the Guardians couldn't interpret. One of them pressed a hand against the console, trying to stabilize the signal, but the pulse resisted, almost fighting back. Then, just for a moment, the patterns aligned into a form they could recognize, an unmistakable silhouette of a fleet. A fleet that had not existed in the galaxy for thousands of years. The revelation hit them all at once. The object had knowledge. Not just knowledge of Earth, not just knowledge of the approaching ships, but of civilizations long gone. It was aware of the galaxy's history, its wars, its betrayals, and it could act on that knowledge. The object wasn't simply a weapon. It was a guardian, a messenger, a force that could tip the balance of power in ways no one had anticipated. The approaching force in space accelerated. It was intelligent, deliberate, and terrifyingly close. Earth's own defenses scrambled, sending signals to satellites and orbital monitoring stations, trying to prepare for what they couldn't yet identify. Humans on the ground watched as streaks of energy appeared in the sky, not missiles, not weapons, but something alive, moving toward the planet with precision, panic mixed with fascination. Every instinct, every story passed down from isolation, told humanity that they had been preparing for this moment. But no preparation could fully anticipate an unknown of this magnitude. The Guardians tried to focus, coordinating with Surface Command. "It's not just arriving," one of them said. "It's reacting to us, to the object. To everything we've done to awaken it," the others nodded grimly. The object wasn't passive anymore, it was actively interacting with the approaching entity. Whatever it was, the stakes had escalated beyond a simple awakening. Earth itself was now the center of a confrontation no one could predict. As the sky shimmered with energy and the object's light fractured across the chamber, a low vibration thrummed through the planet. The pulse had intensified, synchronizing with the approaching force. Guardians, scientists, and ordinary citizens alike felt the pressure mounting, the tension of something monumental, unstoppable, inevitable. And somewhere deep in the underground halls, the realization hit. Whatever secret had been hidden for millennia wasn't just awakening, it was calling the galaxy to account, and the response might be far more dangerous than anyone had expected. Earth had been isolated for thousands of years. Humanity had prepared. But now, the unknown had arrived, and the rules of survival, power, and secrecy were about to be rewritten in ways no one could yet imagine. The approaching force had closed in, and now the stars themselves seemed to bend around it. Humanity's sensors picked up shapes, energy signatures, and patterns that defied logic. The distant fleet that had circled Earth now paused, uncertain, as if the galaxy itself had realized it was no longer in control. And deep beneath the planet, the Guardians knew the time had come. The object's light flared, bright enough to make the chamber feel like the center of a new sun. It vibrated with power that was both mechanical and alive, a force that humanity had nurtured, protected, and finally unleashed. The first shockwave hit the surface before anyone saw it. Not destructive in the traditional sense, but transformative. It rippled through the atmosphere, rearranging the electromagnetic fields, aligning satellites and reactivating dormant technology around the world. Energy flowed into cities, infrastructure, even people who were sensitive to subtle forces, like a pulse that connected everyone on Earth in a way that transcended communication. The planet itself seemed alive, reacting to the awakening. Every human, guardian, and machine felt it simultaneously, the heartbeat of the world, synchronized with a power long kept secret. The approaching ships halted as the pulse reached them. Their sensors flared in warning, but no weapons fired. They could sense something fundamental had changed. The object wasn't just defending Earth, it was asserting control over the very environment, over technology, over matter itself. The fleet that had once intimidated humanity was now uncertain, forced to reevaluate a species they had once written off as powerless. Down in the chamber, the Guardians pressed forward. The object projected beams of light outward, forming pathways and networks that connected Earth's ancient defenses, old orbital stations, and even some of the approaching vessels, creating a grid of controlled energy. One of the Guardians whispered, voice trembling, "It's coordinating everything. It's using our technology." And another nodded, eyes wide. "It's not just awakening. It's teaching us to fight, to survive, to dominate." On the surface, humans watched in awe as the sky lit up with controlled energy arcs that struck the approaching fleet, disabling propulsion systems without harming life. The ships shuddered, confused by the precision, by the restraint, by a force they couldn't anticipate. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had isolated Earth, ignored it, written it off, and now the planet itself had become a weapon, a shield, and a message all at once. The distant alien fleet tried to regroup. Their sensors detected that the object's power extended far beyond Earth, linking satellites, orbital arrays, and even deep space observatories. Every attempt to communicate or attack was neutralized before it could take effect. The pulse from the chamber, now synchronized with the planet's own magnetic field, created a protective lattice that was nearly impossible to penetrate. Humanity had transformed isolation into strength, secrecy into strategy, and survival into dominance. As the Guardians watched, the object's energy converged into a single massive beam, stretching from the core of the chamber to orbiting satellites and beyond, enveloping the approaching ships. The pulse wasn't destruction, it was control, containment, a demonstration of authority. Every vessel slowed, powerless to act, their systems overridden by the technology Earth had safeguarded for millennia. Humanity had not only survived the galaxy's fear, they had surpassed it. And then came the twist no one had expected. Just as the energy grid reached its peak, the object shifted again, forming a doorway of light. It wasn't a weapon or a shield, it was a portal, and beyond that portal was not just space, but time. The Guardians and humans stared in disbelief as glimpses of other Earths, other timelines, flickered within the light. The secret humanity had protected was never only about defense or power, it was about possibility. The object had been waiting not just to awaken, but to guide humanity toward a future the galaxy had never imagined, offering the ability to traverse not only distance, but eras, to rewrite paths and choices. The approaching fleet, paralyzed and powerless, could only watch as Earth stood, not as a victim, not as a conquered world, but as a species fully awakened. The Guardians realized the object had taught them something profound. Survival alone was not enough. Mastery of knowledge, courage, and restraint was what gave them the edge. Humanity's isolation had not been a curse, it had been preparation for a reckoning the galaxy could not ignore. And as the energy pulse stabilized, the object's light softened, forming a single message in a language older than Earth itself. It wasn't a warning, it wasn't a threat, it was a choice. The portal remained open, inviting, promising power, understanding, and control, but with a challenge embedded within it. Humanity could step forward and claim the opportunity or retreat and remain in the galaxy's shadow. In that moment, Earth's population understood the final truth. Their isolation had ended, their secret had been revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same. But as the first humans approached the portal, ready to step into a future that defied everything they knew, the object pulsed one final time. And from its depths, a sound resonated, a voice not of human origin, whispering a question that sent chills through every heart. Are you ready to inherit everything? The stars above flickered, the fleet in space held its breath, and humanity faced a choice that would determine not just survival, but destiny itself. For a moment, silence fell over Earth. The portal's light shimmered, casting colors across the cities and oceans, while the energy pulse from the object gently reverberated through the planet. Humans stood at the edge of something greater than they had ever imagined, and yet, for the first time in millennia, there was a calm sense that every preparation, every secret, every lesson learned in isolation had led to this moment. The Guardians stepped forward first, their movements deliberate and measured. They understood the weight of what lay before them. The portal was more than a passage through space or time, it was a testament to humanity's resilience. The object, which had been silent for centuries, now seemed almost satisfied, responding to every heartbeat of the planet and every pulse of human life. It had tested them, prepared them, and finally, it had opened a path that only those ready could take. On the surface, humanity watched as the first brave individuals moved toward the light. The energy didn't harm them, it seemed to acknowledge their courage and their readiness. Families, scientists, engineers, and guardians alike felt a sense of unity that had never existed before. The planet itself seemed to hum in approval, the oceans shimmering, the skies clear and bright. For the first time in thousands of years, Earth was fully awake, not just in its technology, not just in its power, but in its spirit. The alien fleet that had approached slowly began to retreat. Their sensors recorded everything, every pulse, every movement, every demonstration of Earth's capabilities. They no longer saw humans as a threat in the conventional sense, they saw something they could not comprehend. A civilization that had turned isolation into strength, secrecy into knowledge, and patience into a power the galaxy had underestimated. The ships pulled back into the shadows, leaving Earth free to decide its own path. And yet, the portal remained open. It offered possibilities beyond imagination. Through it, humanity glimpsed futures where the galaxy was theirs to explore, knowledge waiting to be claimed, and civilizations to understand or influence. But more importantly, it offered lessons: the responsibility of power, the importance of restraint, and the necessity of unity. The secret humanity had protected for millennia was not simply a weapon. It was a guide, a challenge, and a promise. In the underground chamber, the Guardians recorded what had happened. Every energy spike, every symbol, every pulse of light was cataloged and preserved for future generations. The object had not just revealed a tool, it had revealed wisdom. Humanity now had access to knowledge beyond comprehension, but with it came a responsibility they could not ignore. Isolation had ended, but preparation would continue. The lessons of millennia would not be wasted. As the first humans crossed the portal, they felt a shift, not just in their surroundings, but within themselves. Every step through the light was a step into possibility, a chance to reshape not only their future but the galaxy itself. The portal pulsed once more, a soft, final reminder of the trials they had endured, the patience they had shown, and the courage that had brought them here. Earth's surface remained vibrant, alive with energy and anticipation. The skies cleared completely, and for the first time in millennia, humans looked up without fear, without doubt, and without uncertainty. They had faced isolation, the galaxy's judgment, and the unknown that had loomed beneath their feet. And they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than any force the stars had ever seen. The oceans reflected the sunlight in brilliant patterns, the winds carried whispers of hope across continents, and every living thing on the planet seemed to sense that a new chapter had begun. Humanity had learned that the greatest power was not in domination, but in understanding of themselves, of their planet, and of the universe around them. And yet, even as Earth's people celebrated, the object's light lingered, faint but steady, a reminder that their journey had only begun. The galaxy would remember them, not as a hidden world, not as a forgotten species, but as humans who had endured, adapted, and emerged ready for what lay beyond. The secret that had been hidden for millennia had fulfilled its purpose. It had prepared a civilization to step boldly into the unknown, to claim its place among the stars, and to shape the course of the universe in ways no one could anticipate. As the portal dimmed and the pulse of the object settled into a steady rhythm, the people of Earth stood together, looking forward. The isolation was over, the secret revealed, and the galaxy waiting. They had been tested, they had endured, and now they were ready. And somewhere, deep within the object, a faint echo of a voice whispered one final time, "The future is yours. Choose wisely." Earth had been hidden for millennia, but it would never be forgotten again. Humanity had emerged, not just as survivors, but as guardians of a destiny that stretched beyond the stars. And as the sun rose over the oceans, shining on a planet alive with promise, one truth remained clear: the story of Earth was only beginning, and the galaxy would never underestimate it again.